As I'm visiting my family in Germany, I'm excited to share how I spend a cozy fall day shopping for seasonal produce and cooking up some delicious food full of the rich and deep flavors of autumn. In the fall, the mornings tend to be foggy, and I always love to go for a nice long walk either in the forest or one of Berlin's many parks, because it just sets the day off to such a good tone. And while the leaves are not quite turning yet, I'm still enjoying my walk. Here is a unexpected bush of hops in one of the parks, and slowly I'm making my way home. My mom is actually out of town, and I decided to have a little surprise for her. So I'm making my way back to her place. On the way, I find this common snowberry here that we popped as kids, and some rose hips that I usually turn into rose hip jam. For the ancient Germanic peoples, the wild boar was a symbol of military strength and fertility, which I'm reminded of with this sculpture. Hitting the S-Bahn on my way home, I decided to take a stroll through the local Saturday flea market. There's always some find or other that I like to snag up and maybe even not be able to get that home. Typically, I don't like to go to Starbucks, but here I decided to cave in and actually get myself a drink.
It's funny, I got a matcha latte, and first of all, when they said, "What's your name?" and I said, "Anya," they knew exactly how to spell it, so that was interesting. And the other thing was that I've had matcha lattes in the United States, and they're always really sweet. This one is not sweetened at all. So maybe I'll also try the pumpkin spice latte, because whenever I try them in the store, they're just way too sweet. A lot of sugar, way too much sugar for my taste. And maybe I'll try one at Starbucks and see how they compare. It's interesting, they have the same items on the menu, but they do taste different.
My last stop is the farmer's market, full of various pumpkins, and you wouldn't believe it, the varieties of pumpkins they have. So I picked one which I wanted to surprise my mom with a meal, and then I got some mushrooms. They're also in season with the rainy forests here. And heading into her Berlin apartment, first I need to make myself a nice cup of cozy tea, because I did get a little bit cool. And here is her water cooker. It's so funny cooking in a different kitchen. But then I'm going to sit on the couch, read a book, have a candle there, and sip a warming cup of tea. I find the fall afternoons so comforting, and there is something about it being cold outside and sitting there with a warm blanket all cuddled up and just taking a slow afternoon. For my first dish, I'm making a pumpkin stew, and I'm chopping up some onions that I am going to saute in some oil, heating over her stove. And it's funny because at home we have gas and my mom has electric. That's a different type of cooking. Next, I chop up a carrot and add that to the onions to saute those up. And then I have some celery root, which is a typical German vegetable, but you can also use stalk celery or celery stalks if you can't find the celery root. And sauteing those vegetables until they're soft. Now for some backbone, I'm adding some potatoes and also add that to the stew. And basically, this is a recipe which you can use whatever you have and whatever you can find. This is the pumpkin that I chose. It's a kabocha squash. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I know what it is. And this one is very flavorful. It has a slightly sweet and earthy taste. I like that a lot better than many of the regular pumpkins, which I find they tend to taste a little watery, at least for my taste. And they're hard, but you need to chop them. So there's a bit of a little workout, which I don't mind at all. And depending on how many people you have, you can always add a little bit more. I cover that with boiling water just to get that going, because electric tends to be a little slower. And I add a cube of dried bouillon, which is also a very typical German ingredient for soups and stews. Covering that, and cooking it, and I like my stew to be somewhat chunky, so I'm just using a potato ricer to give it a little bit of creaminess, but without making it entirely smooth. I had retained some cubes, adding some black pepper, a good helping of salt, and some nutmeg. I think that really complements the sweet flavors, and just a sprinkle of lemon. And then I'm adding some fresh goat cheese, which has a salty creaminess that really complements the sweet. Some pumpkin seeds, you can even roast them if you'd like that, and a drizzle of pumpkin seed oil, which adds a stunning color. Some chopped parsley, and here it is. That was one of the surprises. The next is a dessert that I'm making with the rest of the pumpkin that I'd steamed up, and I found some cream cheese that says California cream cheese at the local organic food store, and this is the best blender I could find in my mom's kitchen. But she did have maple syrup, and I thought that maple syrup has more of a caramel, deeper flavor than just regular sugar. I'm adding that, a good helping of cinnamon, some nutmeg. She didn't have pumpkin spice, which would have been perfect, but like I said, it's cooking in a different kitchen. Butterkekse, which is their regular butter cookies. I crumbled them up in their individual sachets and added them to small cups, and then some melted butter. That is my crust, if you will. It's just a simple dessert, and then spoon over the pumpkin puree. For the main, I had rolled out some phyllo dough, and I'm gonna bake that while I am sauteing the mushrooms that I got. And I don't like to saute them in oil because they will give up a lot of water and cook down a little bit. To that, I'm adding some chopped red onions and also saute them until they're soft and translucent. I like to make up these dishes sort of like on the fly and cook without a recipe, but I'm leaving the link for the pumpkin stew in the description box below sometime. And to make that a quiche, I have sour cream in a bowl here, to which I'm adding 2 eggs. That's basically my quiche sour cream onion mixture. These are local eggs from hens just outside of Berlin. The goal is to whip that up without making the eggs jump out of the bowl. It's always kind of funny, but here we go. And then I have some grated Bergkäse, which is an Alpine cheese. I always love to cook with as much local produce and ingredients as I can. Then I give that a good stir because that will go over my mushroom mix. Here is my crust. It didn't really hold up the way I wanted it, but I am sprinkling the onion mix, the mushroom mixture over the bottom here, and unfortunately my crust kind of folded in the middle because it's a bit of a non-stick springform pan, so it didn't stand up, which is okay because my egg mixture is actually pretty stiff, so it's not going to just flow out. But I'm going to spread that over it and make it go a little bit into the mushrooms here so that the flavors have a chance to mingle a little bit. This is the mushroom quiche. Here it is, super yummy. And then as a dessert, we have my pumpkin cream cheese, no bake, cream cheese as a dessert. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.